Hi, I have started this channel to address certain issues about our education system here in Malaysia. And as you know, education is the pulse of a nation. If you want to build up a nation, build up its education system. And on the contrary, if you want to destroy a nation, destroy its education system. We know that very, very well. So in this channel, what I plan to do is I plan to share a lot of information about status quo of the education system and how it can be better. And when I talk about status quo, I would also definitely address some of the problems that are a part of what education and schools in Malaysia is. Okay, so Malaysian schools, right from preschools to secondary, come under the purview of the Ministry of Education, and we have three levels. They are preschools, primary and secondary. Let's look at preschools in Malaysia. Now this data is from a document of the Education Ministry, and this, I think, data from 2018, right? So here, preschools first, governing bodies, a number of schools. Even though all the kindergartens are under the purview of MOE, these are directly managed by MOE. So there are 6,911 kindergartens directly managed by MOE. Another 229 by ABIM, but they're still funded by the government, yeah, fully funded by the government. Angkatan Belia Islam Malaysia, JAIN, Jabatan Agama Islam Negeri, 750, Jabatan Perpaduan dan Integrasi, 1,781, Kementerian Kebajikan Masyarakat, I believe, this is 8,529, and private kindergarten 7,702 kindergartens. Now, many parents opt for the private kindergartens because of a higher quality delivered, but this is expensive, and mostly, not in absolute terms, mostly these kindergartens, the parents who send their children here are people who can't afford the private education, and therefore they have to send their children here, and it's free, yeah. And another thing to point out is children who go to these kindergartens do not have good mastery of English, because all of these kindergartens have teachers who only speak Malay. All the lessons are conducted in Malay, so the children lose out in terms of their mastery of English, the English language. And as you may know, English is a very important language in order to secure employment in private sectors. So many parents do want their children to have an early start in English, so they opt for the private kindergartens, but these can be very, very expensive. Let's now look at the primary schools. There are 6 types of primary schools. All of them fall under the purview of the Education Ministry. Now, I could not get data on the private and international schools from this document, but from other sources, there is an estimate of the number of private and international primary and secondary schools. Okay, I will tell you the number at the end of this presentation. Anyway, there are 6 different types of schools: national Chinese, national Tamil, special education. I think these are for special needs children. Special model is a small number of schools, some kind of prototype school where they have year 1 to year 9 in one school. Yes, standard 1 right up to form 3 in one school. They call it K9. When it's under the primary group, they call it K9. quite a weird name. And that's special model, yeah, the 8 schools. And finally religious schools, 41. And there are other partially funded, many partially funded religious schools as well, which has not been covered here. So the national schools are attended by all 3 races. Lessons are fully conducted in Malay. The national Chinese schools, national Tamil schools, some subjects are taught in Chinese language, Mandarin, and some lessons are taught in Malay, and English is taught as a language subject. Same with the national Tamil. Okay, most of the lessons are taught in Tamil. They learn Tamil as a language, and some subjects in Malay, I believe, and Malay as a language and English as a language. But usually the majority of students in national Chinese schools are Chinese students, and national Tamil schools are Tamil students. But these schools are doing very well now because of the kind of teachers that teach here, and as a result, increasingly more Malaysians are beginning to send their children to these schools. And the national type schools, which is supposed to cater to all races, now is seeing a dwindling in the number of students because of poor quality. Right. When it comes to secondary schools, there is no more segregated school, a special school for the Chinese community and the Indian community. That is the school called the regular school, the regular secondary school, in other words, a national secondary school. And there are other small numbers of schools, some of which are especially for Muslims, like the government-aided religious secondary schools, and other schools. If you look at Form 6 college, this is mainly attended by non-Malays, more segregation here, and most of the other schools, fully residential, religious, technical, vocational, special education, special model, sports, arts, all of these schools are mainly attended by Malays. So all children, Malays, Chinese, Indian, who belong to the group that does not want to go into these schools, the specialized schools for a particular group, end up in the regular schools. But the quality of those schools are really bad due to poor selection of teachers. Teachers are not able to speak English, not all, but a significant number. And the schools are being run like religious schools with a lot of emphasis on religious activity. And this makes these schools not suitable not only for the non-Muslims, but also for Muslims who have concerns about quality, who are particular about quality, who want their children to have the best education, who want their children to be critical thinkers, who want their children to have excellent mastery of the English language. People like this find these schools unsuitable. If they have money, they can send their children to the 150 to 200 schools. I can't get the exact number because these schools have started mushrooming in Malaysia, but they are very, very expensive. So people who have the money can opt to send their children to private and international schools, but those who don't have the resources have no choice but to send their children to the regular schools. But there are many problems in the school that the government ought to address, arising from one factor, and that factor is the teacher factor. Poor quality of teachers too much emphasis on religion, and also poor quality of leadership. Teachers get away with quite a lot, as we know in the case of a student Ain who was threatened with rape by a teacher and a male student, and she was subjected to a lot of punishment for blowing the whistle. So these kind of incidents are very, very prevalent in these schools, but parents who don't have the financial resources have no choice but to keep sending their children to this school. And what is really alarming is that the education ministry has not taken any action to show accountability. It is almost a sort of arrogance that comes from a place where the people of this country have become slaves with no rights. Meaning, if you have no money, you don't have much money, you have to suffer this. And this is very, very unfair, because I think it is the duty of the state to provide free quality education to the children of the country, so that even if a child is born into a very poor family, the child has an opportunity to get free, high quality education, which will result in social mobility. This situation is perpetuating poverty, and this has to be addressed. And this is why I have started this channel. I call upon you to join me. Let's together do something to push for that ideal school, which I will talk about in future videos. We can do this. It seems like an impossible dream, I know, but we can do this over time if we come together in large numbers and do something about this. Please join me. Let's talk about this some more. I'm willing to invest the time to research and bring in my expertise of 31 years as a school teacher, instructional designer, e-learning manager, teacher trainer, and school improvement advisor to the task of making the education system in Malaysia better. If I could have the numbers, let's push for this. Let's make this happen. This is our country. We don't want to all leave this country and run away elsewhere to greener pastures. Thank you for watching and listening to me.